Hey everyone, this is Bradley from Rareware, and let me tell you guys, we have a special announcement. We are making a brand new Conker game. Here it is. I'm just messing with you guys. I know that was kind of mean, but here's the actual new game. Okay, I know, it wasn't as funny second time around. Sorry. Here's the new Conker game. I, like many other people, grew up with the games made by Rareware. Because the Nintendo 64 was the first console that I ever owned, and I had a big library to start out with because my cousin just gave me her N64 with a bunch of games, I was immediately introduced to Rareware, and I hold great nostalgia for games that were made by that company. Even though I didn't grow up with Conker's Bad Fur Day because, it was a mature game, I went back and played it for the first time just a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like I've been playing this game my entire life because it has that Rareware feel to it. And that sort of nostalgic feeling, although still not nostalgia because I never really played the game before, adding on to the fact that this is just a fun game in general, I just got super into Conker. I wanted to know more about the character, the series, and I did a lot of digging online because I really didn't know much about the character because I played the game for the first time. And I figured out that there was a total of 4 canceled Conker games, which first off just gave me depression, and second off got me very interested because 4 games that at one point were planned to be released eventually got canceled. Like, how come? That's a lot of games to just throw out the window. What happened? I'm here to talk about that because I find these stories very interesting, and I know that a lot of people don't really know about these canceled games. 12 Tales Conker 64 / Conker's Quest is one that's widely known, and we're going to spend some time on that, but probably not as much as the other games. But we also have games such as Conker's Other Bad Day, Conker Getting Medieval, and the short-lived Conker's Big Reunion, which wasn't necessarily just a Conker game in and of itself, but sort of like a branch to the entirety of Project Spark, which we're also going to get into later. Let's start off with the one that more people seem to know about, which is 12 Tales Conker 64 / Conker's Quest. Now, originally Bad Fur Day was supposed to be more of a kid-friendly platformer type game, like Banjo-Kazooie, like Donkey Kong 64. But since Rare was coming out with a lot of games similar to that at the time, and the market was kind of oversaturated with kid-friendly platformer games, critics were a little hesitant on the game and criticized Rare for just doing the same thing over and over again. So they just flipped the entire game around and made completely the opposite of what Conker's Quest / 12 Tales was supposed to be, and made Bad Fur Day, which we all know is anything but kid-friendly. And from what we know, this game was pretty much just about complete, and it was supposed to release in the fall of 1997. They pushed that back because Diddy Kong Racing was coming out, and then eventually just scrapped the project, sort of. They changed it into Conker's Bad Fur Day, but barely anything was left from the original game. This one probably has to be the one that's the most unfortunate because the game was just about complete, and from what I can see, looked pretty good. It was another collectathon from Rare. Even though it's not the Conker that we know and love from Bad Fur Day, I would have loved for them to still release this game and then made Bad Fur Day sort of as a sequel. The only problem I can see with that is that, kids and parents would purchase the original game, and then when the sequel comes out, just, assume it was going to be more of the same, and then get Bad Fur Day, which was anything but kid-friendly. That could have caused a lot of controversy. That's probably why they just ended up scrapping 12 Tales instead of releasing that and then doing Bad Fur Day, because it would have caused a lot of problems, but I would have still loved it if they released 12 Tales because it was just about done, and then did Bad Fur Day. But we do have a lot of gameplay from the actual game. You can look it up on YouTube, and hopefully one day a ROM of this game will come out because Rare still has it locked up somewhere. To promote Rare Replay, they actually on their YouTube channel showed brand new footage from it, captured in HD, just because. And you know, maybe one day they will release it. I actually have an idea on how they could do that. I'll talk about that in a future video, but for now it's just lost. Nobody can actually play it. You can look at the 30 minutes or so of gameplay that we do have, but that's about it. The plot from fandom.com reads, during the game, the main characters are working to recollect more than 100 presents stolen by the evil hoodlums and scattered throughout 4 worlds. While questing through these worlds collecting presents, Conker and Barry must save their friends who were kidnapped and free the universe of the hoodlums. Conker and Barry would swing from branch to branch in Cuckoo Village, dodge falling boulders in the popcorn mines, travel through the windmill pasture, and slide through twisting lava tubes in an active volcano. They would have had help in the form of wise mentor Noah the Owl, and would also obtain exotic tools and equipment like unicycles, umbrellas, and a nut-hurling catapult. The game would also consist of time traveling. The game is said to have featured simultaneously 2 player support in the game, as well as a 4-person battle. I would imagine that the presents that were talked about earlier were to be the main collectibles, similar to the Jiggies or the Power Stars in Super Mario 64. Since we have so much information on this game, I can go into it a lot more, and I'll probably do that in a future video, but since I want to talk about a bunch of canceled games, I'm going to leave it at that with all of the information that I'm going to discuss in this video. With that being said, let's go ahead and move on to Conker Getting Medieval. Now, there isn't much that exists on this game outside of some concept art that Rare actually showed on their YouTube channel to promote Rare Replay. This game was to come out after Conker Live and Reloaded and focus a lot on the multiplayer aspect. This would have shaken up things a lot, and the main character wouldn't even be Conker. He'd be sort of a supporting role, but the main character would more just be Death. That's already getting off to a weird start. They also said that there wouldn't be really a platform element to it. They wanted to work more with the shooting and the war type of gameplay that you saw in Conker Live and Reloaded and focus a lot on the multiplayer. You can tell around this time Rare really wanted to shake things up. They wanted to work on different types of projects, but they still had these IPs that they didn't really know what to do with. I mean, just look at Banjo-Kazooie. Banjo-Kazooie was taken in a very similar route. They took something that was already pre-existing and changed it to where it was almost unrecognizable, and Rare wanted to do the same thing with Conker with more of just a multiplayer game. And this game, I'm probably the least upset that it didn't come to fruition, just because it'd be a very similar situation to Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Now, I'm not saying this would have been a bad game, but it doesn't really sound like a Conker game too much. And also hearing from them that Conker wouldn't even necessarily be the main character, just be like a supporting role, I mean, I don't really know what they were thinking. They were really trying to figure out what they want to do. They're having an identity crisis around this time. Even the concept art doesn't seem all that interesting. They wanted to have, you know, like I said, a multiplayer sort of war mode similar to Live and Reloaded, but focus on a medieval sort of theme. Yeah, I'm not really even upset that this didn't happen, but you know what, it could have been fun, and we don't really know how exactly it would have looked because we only have this concept art. Maybe it was going to be a great game, maybe it wasn't, but who knows, it never came to fruition. Conker's Other Bad Day is another game that I feel had a lot of potential, and there's a lot of story elements and even some concept art that has been released to the public. And Rare stated that they actually started working on this game right after Bad Fur Day, before the buyout from Microsoft, so it would have been released on the GameCube. Chris Evers stated, "We actually started on a direct sequel that was going to be called Conker's Other Bad Day, which dealt with Conker's somewhat unsuccessful tenure as king. He spends all the treasure money on beer, parties, and hookers. Thrown into prison, Conker is faced with the prospect of execution, and the game starts with his escape ball and chain attached from the castle's highest tower. And then from there, it seems as if he was just going to have another random adventure, because all of this stuff that happened in Bad Fur Day was completely random and didn't really connect to each other too often, so here we just had another crazy random story. They said they had a lot of other movie references planned and different worlds to go to, or different areas to go to. Barry would also return as the Panther Queen and be a Terminator-like being. You can tell that Rare had a lot of ideas as to what this game was going to look like and exactly what they wanted to do with it. Unfortunately, then they had the Microsoft buyout, it didn't come to fruition, and they ended up just making a remake of Bad Fur Day and Conker Live and Reloaded. Not too much else is known about the game, but it did sound very interesting and a very similar experience to the original Conker's Bad Fur Day. A lot more wacky areas to go to, and he even said that there was supposed to be a fight with a giant space poo, so something like the Great Mighty Pooh just in space, which would have been fantastic, but unfortunately it never came to be. Conker's Big Reunion is a tricky one. It technically did release, but it wasn't its own full game, and a lot more content was planned for the game as well. And it was only really an add-on for Project Spark, which allowed you to create your own games. So when you did purchase Conker's Big Reunion, you did have that single-player experience that was already predetermined, that was already made there for you, but you could also purchase an additional DLC that would allow you to create your own Conker levels, which was pretty cool. Unfortunately, Project Spark in its entirety was shut down in 2016, and that was almost a completely online experience. So if you hadn't already purchased the Conker content, then there was no way of playing it past this date. And there was more to come for Conker's Big Reunion, more content that was planned, and it had to be scrapped because Project Spark did not work out. That's why I labeled this as canceled, because it wasn't even complete, and now you can't even play the game unless you already had it downloaded. And even though it wasn't its own full game, it wasn't even a full experience, it is unfortunate that I never got to play it as well as many other people, and now it's just gone forever. Alright, fine. I get it. This joke isn't fun anymore. I'm done. We're going to make a brand new Conker game, and I'm not gonna mess with you anymore. I promise. Alright? Here it is. I'm done. See, I'm not even touching it. I'm going. Alright, just stay. It's fine. Psych!